Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. Rusty and Heather Bryant, and we're here to talk to you about marriage because that's what we do. The Redeemed Marriage. And, hey, let's just jump right into today's
Let's do it.
episode. I don't know that there's much. We may talk about, sometimes we do some housekeeping things and give some announcements and stuff, but I think maybe we'll have an opportunity to do that at some point while we're talking. But we are going to address an issue that I feel like comes up quite often. And it comes up a lot in our marriage coaching. And we are about to kick off our February prayer challenge. So that would be the only commercial. If you haven't signed up for that, go to theredeemedmarriage.com and sign up for a day in February that we can pray for you.
Yep.
But we have gotten well over 200 prayer requests that have come in. And there is a theme in a lot of them. And I feel like there's just significant pain in most relationships. And a lot of them, because of our story, the pain is related to infidelity or betrayal of some sort. It could be pornography. It could just be mistrust. A lot of broken trust. That's right. And so it doesn't have to be infidelity, just a lot of pain. And so one of the things, though, that I've noticed more recently, and maybe I'm just more attuned to it, is that people are saying, we've done all of the hard work. Like we've experienced healing in our marriage. We've done counseling, and we've tried these things, and we've done really well. Even some of them have said we've done really well. Some of them, even our marriage, like people we're doing marriage coaching with. Mm-hmm. And then they say, but there's still pain.
Yeah.
So I think we've done an episode before that was just called "When Will the Pain End?" Something like that. But it was geared more towards, okay, there's been this crisis in your marriage. It's recently come out, and I'm just tired of it. I'm like, I am tired of the hurt and the pain. Is this ever going to go away? What I want us to kind of talk about is there's times where, yes, it feels like it has gone away. Hey, bless you.
Sorry.
It feels like that the pain has subsided and gone away because there's been a lot of healing, but then there's just these moments and these days that are just devastating and painful. And there's usually a trigger of some sort. And even to the point where I think some people will go, we've been doing so well, but then all of a sudden this happens. And I get to a point where I can literally go, I don't know if we're going to make it. And it's like, you've done the hard work.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
You've worked so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I just want us to address and really just tell our listeners from our perspective, because all we have is our story. And from our perspective, does that pain end, and when? And if it doesn't, how do you deal with it, or when things come back up? And the other thing that I want to be really sensitive about is that this doesn't just address the betrayed, because I know that that's the obvious pain point and the obvious thing that people look at. But because of our healing and the journey that we've been on, like I can have compassion and understand that you have pain as a result of what happened. And even though people may look at it and go, well,
she deserved it.
She deserved it. It's her fault. Mm-hmm. I don't see it that way now. I mean, there's obviously times that my flesh rises up and wants to think that, but there's ways that I cope with that as well. So, there's my intro. Any opening thoughts there from you, Heather?
Well, I was thinking when you were talking that one of my favorite examples that you give is from The Blacklist, where the main character, his fiance, is murdered, and the main character says, "What can I do to help you?" And he says, "Give me the killer's head on a platter." And he literally does. And in the note that comes with the guy's head,
yes, delivered in a box, like by the mail.
That's right.
Or somebody.
Yeah. Somebody delivers it.
Amazon.
Yeah. Somebody delivers it to him, and he opens it up, and literally it's the killer's head. And there's a note from Red that says, in the note, it says, "I know this hurts. I know this is painful. And it's the first thing you think about every morning. And I know it is. And it's going to be the first thing you think about until one day it's not." But just because it's not the first thing you think about doesn't mean that you don't think about it. It gets easier and it gets easier. Like through 13 years, it has gotten easier. Like your pain is like tiny compared to the day you found out. My shame, now you can let the enemy,
That's
get
right.
you. But as long as I'm keeping my thoughts captive, taking those thoughts captive and making them obedient to Christ, then I can, even in my shame and guilt, that pain gets less and less and less and less, but it's still there. And, I was walking with somebody, I guess it was the other day, this past week, I was walking with somebody and just, meeting, kind of doing a mentorship with somebody close, in town. And we were walking and talking about, the mistrust, the broken trust, and if that ever comes back, and just the pain of infidelity and what that looks like. And she said, I just don't know if the pain is ever going to go away. And, her spouse was saying, I don't know if I want to do this because it's always going to hurt. And I said, but here's the thing. If you can shift your focus and look through a different lens, then even though it hurts, if you're looking through the right lens, you can see it as gratitude. Instead of it pushing you towards, oh my gosh, this hurts still, or is this ever going to go away? Or is it, it pushes you towards gratitude for what God has done and seeing how much he loves you and has pursued you through that. And I challenged her. I said, I want you to think of this as something that tethers you to the Lord. Because here's the thing. If I could do it on my own, if I never hurt, if the pain never showed or reared its ugly head, then I wouldn't have a need for God. Like if I could do it on my own, then I wouldn't have a need for him. So it's almost a gift that he reminds us, hey, this is who you are without me. And let's make sure that you stay tethered to me in this pain. And so I challenged her and I have to challenge myself every day to remind myself to look through the correct lens that, yes, it's hard, but gosh, you've done the hard work and you are walking through some hard stuff. So even though it still hurts, it's an opportunity for you to say, yep, God, I still need you. And thank you for how far you've brought me.
I have so much that I could say. That was so good. I'm glad I gave you a chance to talk.
Because now I'm done.
No, you're not. You're not. Because I wanna ask some questions too, and I wanna just because I think that people are now saying, okay, wait. So you're saying that the pain from whatever circumstance it is never going to go away. Is that what we're saying?
I mean, come on. This is honesty policy.
That's right.
I mean, the pain, like, we're human. When God forgives us, he cast our sin into the depths of the ocean, scripture says, and as far as to the east and to the west, and he forgets it. but we don't have that. We don't have that ability. Like, we're human. You can't forget. And so anytime you're reminded, it hurts. But again, that goes back to how you look at it. You know, I don't know if we've said this on our podcast, but we actually lost 2 babies before we had Luke. And I don't think about those babies often. I mean, like, it's not like the miscarriage comes into my head a lot. You know, I wasn't very far along. I was 12 weeks with one and 8 weeks with the other. And so it's not like I, you know, held a baby or anything like that. But, and I mean, it doesn't make it any less painful. It still hurts. But when I think about, I hear somebody has a miscarriage and I'm reminded, it still hurts. Like, and now, do I go, gosh, if I had had either one of those babies, we probably wouldn't have Luke and Logan, you know? Do I think of gratitude and thank you that I was able to have 2 healthy children, and it spurs you on, but you can choose, hey, I'm going to get stuck in this pain and camp here and throw myself a little pity party if you want to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, we say honesty policy a lot around here. Like, let's just be honest. It never goes away, but it is so faint and then is a sweet reminder.
Well,
all at the same time.
Well, the thing that I think is helpful to people to maybe understand is almost, hey, let yourself off the hook from thinking that you shouldn't feel
That's right.
emotions and pain related to it.
You shouldn't be over it.
Because I think what happens is that we go through this process and we talk about healing and we hear, you know, stuff about healing. We go to conferences and we could go to marriage intensives and we could go to counseling, and we see it on this linear timeline, this linear plane of, well, this is when it happened. And at some point on this linear plane is when this timeline is when it's going to end. The healing process is going to end and everything's going to be fine. And like, what I want to challenge people is why would we think that? So the very easy or the very, very honest answer to this is 13 years later. And yes, it still comes back up to me. And yes, there is some pain, but it's not the same. And I've done a lot of thinking recently about, well, you know, why? And why do we expect it to not be there? But why is it there? And like, our minds, our brain, it's just we're living out this, you know, take a step back and it's almost like we're living out this movie. And there's parts of the movie that when we see things, they come back. And a lot of times they're great. They're good. So, for instance, we've been on 2 cruises in our lifetime. And if a commercial for a cruise pops up on TV, most likely, chances are, I'm going to think back to the 2 cruises that we went on and how much fun we had and how great they were. Now, I can take that and really sit in it and really think about details and be, oh, I remember that. Oh, that was fun. But that doesn't usually happen. It's usually just like, oh, man, that was great.
I just think about the ice cream and move on.
You do. But that's the case, I think, with all memories. Yeah. Like, probably some of the greatest memories of our life, I would say, would be our wedding day and the day our 2 boys were born. Now, when we see each other, we don't think about our wedding day every time we look at each other.
Right.
But if we see a picture, you know, your parents have pictures hanging in their house of our wedding day, and man, yeah, we think about it. Same with our boys. Every time we look at our boy, we don't think about our boys. We don't think about the day that they were born, but we can.
Sure.
If something just kind of triggers it and we see something or something reminds us.
Or somebody we love is having a baby.
Yes.
You talk about it.
That's right.
And remember it.
And so that's just part of life. And those are big moments. But it's not just big moments. And it's not obviously not just happy things.
Right.
So painful things, even if it's not your marriage. So
Death of a family member.
yes,
Or
like
a friend.
I thought about this. When is the last time, but just honestly, when is the last time you thought about the fact that you had cancer?
Well, that's a loaded question because it was today.
Yeah, because somebody said something.
Yeah. Well,
But-
and one of somebody that I walked through breast cancer with passed away a couple of days ago.
Yep.
And I found out today. And so, yeah, I thought about it. And I thought about that I had it and fear rose.
Yep.
Because I was like, she had breast cancer. I had breast cancer. She was maybe 5 years older than me.
2 years
older than me. And she passed away. So
Yep.
it scared me.
Yeah. And I know that you have said before that I wouldn't think that every time you see scars and look in the mirror,
right.
you don't think about it. But I'm sure there are times that you go, oh,
yeah,
man,
Yep.
And you can send yourself down this path of like fear and doom and gloom, or you can, like you said at the beginning, you can be thankful for where you are now and your healing and all that, and sort of move on. I think the reason, and we were telling this to a couple the other night, I think the reason why triggers for these painful, broken trust memories, why they can become so engulfing, I don't know, just all-consuming, is because we have, for the betrayed person, like we have created this almost like a movie script, like I said, in our minds because we weren't there. All of these other things that I just mentioned and talked about, I was there. We were there. We have real memories, and we can go back to exact moments and exact points, and we can go, oh yeah, I remember that as being good, or I remember that as being painful. If I can think back to injuries that I've had or just anything, you can think back because I was there, but I wasn't there. And so what that causes me to do is when you confessed to me and you told me pieces of the story, then I spent countless hours, days, weeks, months trying to connect the dots and paint this picture and create this. So the mental capacity and the amount of space that took up in my head might outweigh anything else in my entire life. I don't even want to say might. It does. The amount of thought that I put into those moments and that period of our life far outweighs anything else. So because of that, it's like, how could I ever think that I'm not going to think about that? Like it holds the most mental capacity
Still?
No. Well, I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like a computer and you only have X number of RAM up there.
No, I think my question is, when everything happened and you're trying to fill in the pieces and all of that, it took a lot of your mind, but you don't think about it in that capacity
It's
anymore.
just somewhere in there.
Right.
And that's why there's things that will pop up that then, you can connect this dot and this dot and this dot, and before you know it, you're just in a terrible place.
Yeah, back in the pit.
Yeah. And so I want people to understand that from just my experience, 13 years later, it still comes up. And when it comes up, is there ever a time where it's painful? Sure. But it's not like it was obviously 13 years ago. And not only that, but I've learned to put things into practice in my own mind and in my own heart that it doesn't become something that's crippling or debilitating. And I've said those words before. But I think that when I'm on my deathbed, I may still have some residual pain from it. Maybe. I mean, but the life that we're living, but I think that would be the case for anything in life.
Yeah.
But it's just so magnified because of what I've said. Your mind has just consumed so much time and energy. And I'm not so sure it's that much different. You probably haven't thought through it quite the way that I have, but even your mental capacity of just thinking through, how could I have done that? Trying to come up with some sort of an answer so that it explains it to you and to me through the healing process, coming up with just having the thoughts of how did I get there? What were the things that I did? I'd never want to do those things again. And then going, oh my gosh, people don't do this to their spouse. Like, how could I have done this? And then it's the guilt and the shame and all of that. So you have probably done as many mental gymnastics as I have, just on a different scale and a different level. And so I just want people to just kind of give yourself a break and go, okay, it's going to happen. And so if it's going to happen, though, what do we do about it? And the answer is what you said. You're replacing. I mean, I now have 13 years of replacement memories that I'm able to far outweigh those things. And, even the season of life that we're in and the life that we're living right now, like every time good happens, which is every day for us, but every time something good happens, it almost like pours another shovel full of burial dirt on top of it, and it just gets deeper and deeper. But it does still happen. So you mentioned one time, or when you were talking a while ago, you said something about the taking every thought captive, and I mean that is the number one thing, because you can make yourself stop thinking and traveling down the road.
Well, and that's the second part of the verse. It's not just take your thought captive. It doesn't end there. 2 Corinthians 10:3-5, it says, you take your thought captive and make it obedient to Christ. And to sit in shame and guilt is not God-honoring. To sit in pain and woe is me is not God-honoring. And so you have to take it captive, the thought captive, because the thought coming into your head is not a sin. It's normal. Like, that's our flesh. But then you have to take it captive and say, okay, like, I'm going to make this thought obedient to Christ. And for me, my personal experience, the best way to do that is gratitude. It just puts out the fire for me. And so I look through that lens and say, God, help me to remember the good that has come from this. Help me to remember how you rescued me from this. Help me to remember that this place is not my home. You said a while ago, you said it's kind of like watching a movie. And when you said that, I was reminded it's kind of like watching a movie, but you know how it ends. Like, let's just throw out the basketball game the other day.
Oh, it was a good one.
Shut up. So Alabama played Ole Miss. Alabama was number 4. Ole Miss was number 21. And, I'm an Alabama fan. He's an Ole Miss fan, blah, blah, blah. So we're watching the game, and I had all the confidence in the world that Alabama was going to win. I was like, we're going to win. It was in Tuscaloosa. Like, what in the world happened? Well, we didn't win. But we were nervous and we were back and forth. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. And, but let's just say we went downstairs and the replay was on.
Ooh.
No.
You want to do that?
I would turn it off. But if it was, I wouldn't be anxious.
Right.
I wouldn't be, because I know how it ends.
And you really wouldn't even be all that mad
No,
about it.
because I know how it ends.
It may stir some stuff up, and you're like, oh, I can't believe that.
That's right. But I know how the game ends. The game ended. And for me, that's such a picture of hope in this life. I mean, we have such hard things we walk through. We have pain. We have hurt. We have joys. All the things we walk to, but we know how the story ends. Like, we have hope in a future and a God that all will be well. And Scripture says there will be no more pain, no more tears. And I just feel like if you can't look through with gratitude, it's knowing that this isn't the end of our story. I know that went really, really far in the thought process, but there are days where taking it captive and making it obedient to Christ, that's where I have to go.
Well, people sometimes will say to us, I can't do that. Like, that's not how I'm wired to take a thought captive. Like, we've heard people say that. And I was thinking about that today because I was thinking about that verse. And the verse says to take every thought captive and make it obedient to Christ. And then it doesn't say, however, some of you are not capable of doing that.
And if you can't.
And so you need to take this alternate route. It doesn't say that because there are obviously things that some of us are not good at, and we have to put it into practice. And that's what that is.
Yeah, but not only that, some of us can't do it alone. And so you have to say, God, help me to take this thought captive.
Just what you said at the beginning, it tethers us to the Father, where we have to say, I can't do it by myself.
Right.
And I got to have some help. And so, but it's not just throwing up your hands and going, well, that's not how I work. So
that's not how I'm wired.
So when I start thinking about it, I'm just going to think about it until I go into a pit.
Right.
And so
what does that mean, to take it captive and make it obedient to Christ?
Well, for me, I know what it means because, and I've got a perfect example of that. So some of y'all might be thinking like, and especially people that don't, that were not betrayed, but did the betraying. They're like, what happens to make you think about that kind of stuff? And you know, I can sit down and talk to anybody that's been betrayed, and I can say, hey, you know, is there a pattern? Is there something? And almost every one of them will say, no,
nope.
There's no pattern. It's just like something happens. So, for instance, you mentioned that somebody had come to walk with you, and you told me, you said, hey, when I come home from work, I'm going to go walking with somebody. And I was like, sounds great. Well, I was at home, and you had told me a time, and you weren't home. And so I was actually doing the dishes. Bonus points for saying that.
You're bragging.
I was doing the dishes, and I just thought to myself, I was like, okay, what am I going to do if she shows up? Because I'm obviously not going to let her in the house. Sure. So I would probably, you know, step outside and tell her that, but that's not where my thought stopped, because then all of a sudden I started having some memories and some triggers of somebody coming to our house and you going outside and me walking by and going, well, that's weird. Why is he here? And then walking outside. And so do you see where I connected it just started connecting these dots from nothing, like literally. And so when I look at it that way and think, people can take all of these very small and you're going right now in your mind, you're going, what is he talking about? And that's the thing too, because those thoughts never go away from me, and you never think about them,
right?
Because it doesn't matter. Like those things don't matter. And then there's this part of me that I can even go into a deeper pit where I can go, I wonder if she ever thinks about that. Like I can literally think to myself, that specific incident, I wonder if she ever thinks about it. I wonder if she's ever thought about it. And if she does, where does it take her mind? And the reality is you don't, but it can. So you, back to your question, what do you do when that happens? Well, I just immediately was like, hey, why am I thinking this? Like, this is stupid. That's taking it captive, going, no. Like, I'm not going to continue down this road of, well, then what happened? Or what was the motive? You can just go off. And so that's taking it captive, going, no. I am stopping that. So for me, that's taking it captive. Very simple. Just stop. Like, stop it. Like, stop it.
That's right.
But then to make it obedient to Christ, I'm not even kidding. And I didn't do this consciously. It was subconsciously. But as I was washing the dishes, I literally realized, I was like, I'm smiling. Why am I smiling? Well, I was smiling because I mean, in my heart, I was like, oh my gosh, where we are now. Like, I was just filled with, thank you, God.
Yeah.
Like, thank you that she's not that person anymore. Thank you that I am a person that can even take this painful part of the story and turn it into, man, what you have done to bless us since that time. Yeah. So that's what it means to me, to take a thought captive and make it obedient. Did that answer your question?
No, it did.
Did you ask me that question?
I did. And I mean, making it obedient to Christ is a whole nother level. It's not just stop, but then what? And it's choosing to honor God with your thoughts. And I've said this twice on this podcast, so you can probably fill in the blank. But for me, that's gratitude. So, it's how I'm able to do it.
I feel like this is one of those topics we could really talk about forever. I want to finish by saying one last thing, and it's something that we could probably, have an entire podcast episode about. But part of this understanding and this healing of, and really the understanding of knowing there's going to always be some triggers, some thoughts, some pain that's going to come to the surface. My spouse, whether they were the ones that did it or not, they're going to have the same thing. Well, you understand that, both of you, about each other. And then you understand we're on this journey. Like, this is, like, forgiveness has happened. We trust each other. We love each other. But we're on this journey together. And when it comes up, like, I know that 90% of the time, 99% of the time, you're going to deal with it internally. I'm going to deal with it internally. But if we can't, like, it's okay. Like, it's okay for you to say, man, I was just feeling a lot of shame and guilt today. Can you pray for me? And instead of me going, oh, Lord, well, it's your fault. You're the one, or if it was me and I said, gosh, something really just got me today. And you just go, oh, is this ever going to end?
Right.
Well, the reality is no, it's not. But the beauty of it is that it's a journey, teamwork, together. And all we're doing is chasing the same thing. We're chasing sanctification. We're chasing who we want to be as a follower of Christ, and we're chasing being the best spouse that we can be. And however that looks, it's going to be done together.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that we have to put out there at the very front and chase after it. Yep. Okay. Hey, hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. And if you haven't already, go sign up, theredeemedmarriage.com. Click on the banner at the top, sign up for a date that we can pray for you, and it will be an honor to do that. So, until next time,
peace.